Welcome, everyone. This presentation is from the Issaquah School District regarding student supports.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight with us. We appreciate you being here. I know everyone's super busy, and it's going to be a challenging time when you have students at home. So thank you for being here. My name is Noah Westerberg, and I'm the Director of Counseling and Student Wellbeing. Our department oversees a variety of programs, including our school counselors, mental health, and our Swedish mental health counselors. Section 504. We also support our McKinney-Vento and foster care program and home hospital as well.
And my name is Lorna Gilmore. I am a family partnership specialist. I'm a teacher on special leave. A part of my job involves doing teacher training around parent communication and parent support. And another part of my job is around parent information events and family engagement. I do a lot of information nights, about one or two a month, and a lot in the summer to help parents understand and navigate the school system. In addition, I support 3 family liaisons, and the 3 liaisons work in each of the schools. They have different feeder patterns, and at those schools, they help families understand or answer questions, help the families understand the school system. Here is our website for the family partnership. The liaison contact information can be there. We do a lot of events, and we'll talk more about some of those events late at the end of this session. But I just wanted you to see our website because next week, this presentation, since it'll be recorded, will be posted under the resources page under general information, along with the other events and recordings that we have done for families in the district, for families in the Issaquah School District. So, and in general, just note that we, Noah and I, are all part of the department called Equity, Belonging, and Family Partnership. It includes the counseling department, the equity department, the family partnership departments. So the purpose of this event is to address student challenges at school. It's to explore academic, social, mental health challenges that students face, because part of reality is that students are growing up and these are critical years. So there are many concerns that our students are facing. Honestly, this is my 29th year in teaching. I have taught high school for 5 years, middle school for 15 years, and the dean at an elementary school for 2 years. And at every level, their students face issues and different kinds of issues at different times. Sometimes in elementary school, it might be in all levels, there's always health issues. At all levels, there's academic issues. At all levels, there are social emotional issues, different types, but they exist. Sometimes there's trauma in the family. There might be um, social anxiety. There might be just so many different things. And so we wanted to make sure that all families knew what supports were available through the school district, because every single school district might have slightly different resources, and how to navigate them might also be different. And going to many teacher meetings or dean meetings, family partnership, other group meetings, I recognize that all the school districts do things slightly differently. And so we want to make sure that all families know how to, where to, and what resources are available in the Issaquah School District, as they themselves, as the primary caregiver of your child, are trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I help my child? What is this? Where do I even start? And so this is really about this collaborative partnership, okay? Because we want to partner with you. We want to help you. We are very, very invested in your child. We care. And so we want you to know that this support exists. So again, as I said, that why this event matters is because we recognize that some families don't know what supports are available, and this event is to bridge that gap. And it's also in recognition that in some cultures, there are some stigmas and hesitancy to families communicating and sharing some information with the school. There might be fear and uncertainty as how that information will be used. Will this information be appearing on a transcript? Will it be shared? How public will this be? Will colleges find out? And so it's to share all this information so that we can build trust and relationships with families as we work together to support the child. It's to make sure that we're fostering this strong school community partnership for the holistic student success. And it's to empower you as parents so that you have the knowledge and the tools so that you can begin this process as you support your child.
So the first thing that we're going to talk about is academic struggles. And as we go through this presentation, I just want you to keep in mind that different challenges can present differently at different ages and different grades. But we just wanted to give you just kind of an overview of what signs you might see if your child is struggling. So we have a list here. Some things you might notice with your student is that their grades may be declining. They could be having more missing assignments, also having challenges getting assignments turned in on time could be a sign. Your student might be frustrated at school. Maybe they're refusing to do their homework or just it's just a battle to sit down and having them do that every evening. That could be a sign that they're challenging in school or a specific class. Obviously, no interest in school or lack of interest in school. That's also a sign that there could be some academic challenges. And then other indicators include having trouble staying organized, struggling with school-related discussions, or frequent complaints about specific subjects. And just because a student shows some of these signs doesn't necessarily mean you need to jump to the highest level of support, but they're just things to be aware of. So the first person that you should always go to if your child is struggling or you think that they could be struggling in school is their teacher. They know your child the best. They see them every day. They know how they're doing in class, how they're acting in class. So that's always like our recommendation for your go-to person. You can also go to your student school counselor. So we'll talk about the school counselor role in a little bit more. But all students in our district have a counselor. We have one at each elementary school, and then at the secondary level, all of our school counselors have caseloads, and your students are assigned to one school counselor who supports them. There's also additional resources available. We'll get into some of these more later, but there's tutoring or academic support programs that could be offered to support your student. There's also study skills classes, reading supports. We also have a voice mentor program, which is a program where there's an adult who meets with students one-on-one. It just serves as a positive support and role model for students. So they often meet with students during lunchtime, and that program is offered K-12. And then our school counselors can help refer to any outside resources or supports that students might need. Just a few things that you could do at home to support your students with any academic struggles are to have structured homework routines. And just structured routines in general is really helpful. So having designated time where you know that they're going to be doing their homework, that can help. Encouraging open communication about school. I know it's really hard. We have a 9-year-old at home, and it's really difficult to find out like what's going on at school or how his day was. But just trying to have open communication and then trying to encourage them to have conversations about how things are going. And then it's also really important to praise effort over results. So rather than saying, "Oh, you got 100% on this test," or you got a great grade last quarter in this class, just praise the effort. So I noticed that you've been working really hard in your math class, or I like how you've been reading consistently every evening. So praising their effort and behavior over the results that they're getting can be helpful. And then trying to maintain consistent communication with teachers is helpful. Like I said earlier, they're the ones who know how your students are doing, and you're always welcome and encouraged to reach out to them. And then finally, monitoring and teaching your students how to look at their grades. show them how to get online and look them up so they can track their progress. Of course, this is easier said than done when they're older, but when at the elementary levels, even just getting online with them and kind of taking a look can be helpful, and then helping them advocate for themselves. So, walking them through like, have you talked to your teacher if you have questions, or like, who do you go to when you're struggling in school, or where you need some extra support? So just encouraging some of those types of things can be helpful as they get older. All right, Lorna, can you go to the next? Thanks. And then, so now we're going to move into social emotional challenges. So some of the signs that might indicate that your student is having some challenges are frequent mood swings. Oh, see, there's a question. We'll answer the questions after we get through the presentation. Withdrawing from family or friends, so being reserved or being more quiet than they typically are. Changes in sleep or eating habits, difficulty managing emotions, or expressing feelings of sadness, worry, or anger. And of course, it's normal for students or every person, to be sad, to be nervous sometimes. But when you're noticing that they're having those feelings, probably more consistently or often than is typical, that could be an indication that there could be something worth looking into and getting support for. So if you notice any of these signs, you can go to your student's teacher or school counselor. For additional support, you can consult with your pediatrician. We always say that like that's kind of like your go-to person. If you think like you're, you might have questions about, possible diagnosis, or you want to see, what supports are available in the community, a pediatrician is a great person to go to get support for your students. And then also there's a lot of local mental health professionals and agencies in our community that can support our students. We have a great tool called Care Solace that we'll show you in a little bit that can help you find and navigate how to find a clinician for your student. And then some of the supports that we offer in our buildings, so social emotional learning. We have a social emotional learning curriculum, grades kindergarten through 6. We use Second Step. So there's a scope and sequence that all of our students get those activities and lessons throughout those grade levels. And then at the high school level, or it's also in middle school as well. So grades 7 through 8, 7 and 8 as well. And at the high school level, we have social emotional activities and lessons that are integrated into classes. And so what we're doing, instead of having a scope and sequence and using a social emotional learning program, we've worked with our teachers and staff to develop these lessons, and they're aligned with the Washington State social emotional learning standards. We also have Care Solace, which will show you. Some of our schools have Swedish school-based health counselors in addition to school counselors. And then finally at the bottom of this slide, we just have some things that you can do to support your students at home. So just being a good listener, listening without judgment, giving your student an opportunity to express how they're feeling or what's going on, helping them learn coping skills to deal with their emotions. Again, just like supporting them with academics, routines can be very helpful. Having positive relationships and encouraging conversation. And then, if you feel like extra support is needed, working with the school to get some outside resources if necessary. So as I shared earlier, pediatricians are great people to go to. And you don't even need to know like what exactly but if you just sense that something might be off, that you can just go to your pediatrician for any questions that you have, and they can help guide you into the right direction. So you can pretty much go to them for any concerns that you have, any physical health concerns, behavior or emotional health concerns, developmental concerns. So if you just feel like, there could be like a possible learning disability, your child's just having consistent challenges at school. And then physical or cognitive signs that their school performance being affected. And we'll get into what types of supports can be available to students If there is like a diagnosis and that's impacting their education, we'll talk about what those supports could look like and what they are. And then finally, if you don't have a pediatrician, we have school nurses who support all of our schools in the district. And they're a great resource to help find a pediatrician. They can help navigate, the insurance system and ensure that your students getting the support and care that they need. Can you go to the next slide, please, Lorna?
Yes, the one thing I was going to add, Noah, is the pediatrician information is completely confidential. They're never going to share that with the school. So once a pediatrician gives you information or makes some kind of suggestion to you, you can then use that information and take it to the school counselor and ask what the next steps could be, or you could bring any kind of health concerns to the school nurse to see how you can then partner with them. And Noah is going to give you most information on what that might look like when you bring that information to the school nurse or to the school counselor. So usually they are the first line of helping you identify and partnering in your child to ensure that they are well. That's part of the well child checkup very often, as they ask many questions of families. And also, they're the ones who really our families use to first kind of help you brainstorm or see what's going on with your child. Okay.
All right. And as I shared earlier, all of our schools have school counselors, and our counselors are certified. They all have master's degrees in school counseling, and they also have ESA certificates, which is basically a specialist certificate that's required in the state of Washington. And they implement a comprehensive school counseling program. So as part of that program, they have three domains that they support. They support students academically, they support them socially and emotionally, and they also support with post-secondary support, so college and career readiness. That obviously looks different at the different levels, but we have an Issaquah School District comprehensive school counseling program that we expect all of our counselors to be following, with the hopes that regardless of what school building that your students in, they will be receiving like similar supports in all three of those domains. And then it's really easy. They're always approachable to access. So you're welcome to reach out to your school counselor by just emailing them or calling them. Their contact information is all located on our website. And then all of our schools have a school counseling page on their school web pages. So it contains their contact information. School counselors post newsletter information, resources on their pages. So that's a good way to get a hold and kind of find out what's going on in your school counselor, your child's school counseling program. And again, they're available to support any academic, social, or emotional concerns, and are available to meet with you all virtually or in person. And one important piece of the school counselor and student relationship is confidentiality. Sometimes that's, there's concerns about if I go to the school counselor, like, is everybody, are the teachers going to know that we're talking about or other students? So it's really important that our school counselors maintain that confidentiality, and all of our counselors adhere to that. So it ensures that students can have, share personal concerns in a safe and private space. That way they can have a trusting relationship with students. There are a few times when counselors might have to break confidentiality, and this is always discussed with students, so students are aware. If a student is at risk of harm to themselves or others, school counselors are obligated to report that. If they're experiencing abuse, or if we're required by the law, like if there's a subpoena or judge or court order, then the counselor would have to disclose information. And school counselors really want to work with you all and partner with you all to support their students. So most of them, they all have at their school buildings, they have a counselor corner newsletter, just give you updates on their programs and events that are going on. Like I said, they also have web pages. And they encourage students to involve parents and guardians when appropriate. So even though that there is confidentiality and that's really important, if a student is struggling, with something at home, or we always encourage students to have conversations with their parents about them and let them know what's going on. All right, so Care Solace, this is a new resource that we have available to our school district. We started our partnership with them last November, and it's a central hub that essentially connects students, staffs, and their families to care. Um, we know it can take a lot of time. Like if you're looking for a counselor for your student, that process can be really grueling and just really challenging for families. So at no cost, this service will quickly and confidentially find providers for your family. And this is for your students. It can be for adults in the home and even family members as well. And this service is available 24/7, 365 days a year. They also have care coordinators who speak multiple languages. So if you need to, we're in an English session right now, but if anyone needed translation, there are companions who speak different languages. And we're going to click on the link right here. So we have a Care Solace webpage that any one of you can access. And I just kind of wanted to show you, so if you want to learn more about this support and how to access. So right here, we just have an overview of what it is. We have some of their contact information. So there's a couple different ways that you can access Care Solace. One is you could call, and then you can work with a care companion. And that companion will be assigned to work with you throughout the whole process until you get into care. You can also talk to your school counselor, your child's school counselor, or an administrator at their school, and they can put in referral for you. Sometimes it's hard to take that first step, and our team can support you with that if necessary and walk you through the process. And then also, if you just wanted to kind of do your, search on your own and just you want to not even, you don't want to, you don't want the support of a care companion, you can go through, if you click on this link right here that Lauren is on, you can actually go in, provide some information. There's about 10 questions that you need to complete. And you can get a list of local clinicians or agencies that could support you or your student. So yeah, we could just go through this really quickly just to give you an idea. And if you go this route, like the school, like this is all confidential. Like we don't have the ability to see, what families are accessing it this way. You just click on like anxiety or something, Lorna.
Yeah, I was just pausing and I had to unmute myself. Sorry, because I love this slide because it really helps parents sometimes. Because sometimes parents don't know the definition of, at least in some of the families that I've worked with, because they don't have words to explain what is wrong with their child. They just know that there's a concern. So
Mhm.
let's say anxiety.
And in addition to mental health, substance use support, they recently added BCBAs, like board certified behavior analysis. So if your child's struggling with behaviors and you need support with that, um, this is a resource to get connected to that type of care as well. They also help navigate insurance. So if you don't have insurance, they can find you providers who can work with you and support you with getting care, even if you don't have insurance as well.
So that was an example of the navigating through that, and just letting you know again that this is under the counseling website. And I know that Noah referred to the school counselors very often, and that the school counselor links for all elementary, middle school, and high school counselors based on your child's last name are all listed here. And in addition, the The Noah, you talked about the Swedish mental health. No, he's going to be
Well, I think
talking
that's
about that
next.
next. And when he does, I just want to show you their website, which is constant. There we go. And you can also visit their website to learn more information over here. And I'll go to their site now, their page.
All right. So we have Swedish school-based mental health counselors in 15 of our district schools. And they're licensed independent clinical social workers who we call it tier two supports. So it's primarily for students who need more short-term care, so like 8 to 12 weeks. If students need more intensive or long-term care, then we would work with the Swedish providers to refer outside. We can also utilize Care Solace for that as well. And then all of our Swedish social workers adhere to HIPAA compliance. So the content of what they discuss is confidential, even between school staff. Um, like I said, they can help provide referrals to the community. At the elementary level, we only have Swedish clinicians in 4 of our buildings. 2 of them split time. But our Swedish social workers, they do provide consultation. So if, any families might need, I mean, we do have Care Solace, but if you wanted to talk to one of the social workers about, um, you know, services that are in the community, the school counselor can help arrange connection with them. And of course, this service is, these services are all voluntary, and they're offered during the school day. So students cannot, see the Swedish counselor in the evenings. They work, during the regular school day. And then I think on the next slide, we share that this is a free support that's offered. I also want to note that Care Solace is also free. There's no limit to how many times you can use it, or how many family members utilize it. It's free for every time that you use it. Our Swedish team works really closely with our staff. So they'll often, provide some like tier one, like mental health lessons on mental health literacy. So they can sometimes provide skill building groups, small groups. They also organize mental health events in our buildings. And they also help our school staff with crisis response. If you have any questions or are interested in seeking a referral to Swedish, you're welcome to go to the webpage that Lorna just shared and you can reach out to them directly. You can also speak to your student school counselor and they can provide guidance on how to access them. That's it for that one. And we have, a lot of students who have or are dealing with trauma. So we just kind of wanted to spend a couple minutes kind of going over some of the things that we are currently seeing in our school buildings and things that are affecting our students. So just quickly, a definition of trauma is any experience that overwhelms a child's ability to cope, that leaves them feeling unsafe, scared, or helpless. And this affects the student's emotional, mental, and physical well-being and can impact how they think, feel, and behave. And so that's why this session is important because one, you can kind of see like, oh, if my student has experienced trauma, these are some of the signs that they're struggling. These are the people in school that I can go to for support. And some students who have experienced trauma might need even more support. So that's why the Care Solace and getting referred to outside care is so important. Some of the common forms of trauma that we do see in our buildings are divorce, loss of a loved one, physical or emotional abuse, immigration or refugee trauma. That's something that's coming up a lot right now, and then bullying. And then mental health issues due to physical health. Um, So if a student is having physical health issues, that can also be interconnected to having mental health issues, which also connects to school performance as well. So all of those things are um, pretty closely tied together. So understanding the condition. So if there is a condition, knowing what's going on, advocacy and emotional support, seeking support services, so accessing professional help if it's necessary, educational assistance, and community and peer support. And then the last thing is providing a support nurturing environment. Promoting independence and confidence, helping reduce stress. If you're noticing that your student is having, a great deal of stress at home, trying to make things calm and consistent.
Okay.
And then, like I said earlier, all of our buildings have school nurses. So these are some of the things that they tasks that they do in their buildings. So they distribute medications to students that are provided and approved by the caregivers and healthcare providers. They do screenings for vision, hearing, and other potential health issues. They ensure that all students are up to date on their vaccines and immunizations. And if they're not, they work with families on how to, access that. Like if a family doesn't have a pediatrician or is not sure where to get vaccines, your school nurses can help navigate that process. And then also just connecting students and families just to any relevant health resources that they have in general. So if your student, let's say your student is struggling academically and you've tried some things at home, maybe they're even seeing a provider outside of school, or if you talk to a pediatrician. Um, if it gets to the point where you think they might need more formalized supports in school, we have what's called a guidance team. And so this is a team that's consisted of school staff, usually a school psychologist, school counselor, teachers, a building administrator. And they get together and talk about, the presenting concerns that the student's having. Um, and then if a student is suspected of having disability, the team could refer the student to a special education or 504 assessment. And we'll talk a little bit more about what special education and 504 are. So Section 504, this is a federal law that protects students from discrimination based on disability. So in order to qualify for a 504 plan, a student needs to have a physical or mental impairment or suspected impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. And one major life activity that is impacted is typically learning. So if a student, if the school is going through the process of determining whether or not a student qualifies, we have the consideration process right here. So a parent guardian needs to consent to a school's 504 evaluation. And then the school will collect data. The data will come from a variety of different points. We'll look at grades, achievement data. We'll get teacher input. We'll often get data or information from outside providers. And then the 504 has a team meeting. And then let's say a student qualifies for a 504 plan, they meet the criteria and they qualify. So your student would have a plan that is made up of accommodations that helps them access their education. So with the 504, it's not like special education where your student would get specially designed instruction. The 504 plan is only made up of accommodations that will help your student. And then you as guardians would work with the school team to develop the plan. And the 504 plans are in place. Your student will receive accommodations if they have them in all of their classes. Teachers are required by law to provide those accommodations. If there's ever any concerns about the plan, you can request a 504 team meeting or reach out to their 504 coordinator at any time. And they can support you all with it. So it can be a working document. So it's not like once you create the 504 plan and have the accommodations that it's just locked in and it can't change. The plan will change according to what the student needs. And then every year, if your child does have a 504 plan, there's an annual 504 review meeting. Two other supports. The first is an individualized healthcare plan. So this is a formal agreement that outlines the student's healthcare needs and a plan for addressing those needs. These plans are typically help developed in partnership with our school nurses. And these plans are created for students who have healthcare needs that, if they are not addressed, may negatively affect or have the potential to affect attendance or academic performance. So that's something that is not as common, but we do have those available to students. The next one is individual educational program, or IEP. And these are students who, if you qualify, will be in special education. So special education provides individualized instruction and services to students with disabilities to support their unique learning needs. So in addition to accommodations, there's also individualized instruction that goes along in conjunction with that. Special education is governed by IDEA to ensure that eligible students receive a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. So the goal is we really want students who are special education to be in their general education classrooms as much as they can be. A couple key components of special education. If a student qualifies, they'll have an IEP. The plan will outline the student's goals. They'll have accommodations similar to a 504 plan. And then they also have services that will be outlined within the plan. And then some support services that can go into an IEP include speech therapy, occupational therapy, counseling, and there could be other support services included in that as well. And then similar to the 504 team, the IEP team is really collaborative, and they work together to support the students. All students who have an IEP will have a case manager who's kind of the point person for supporting them. But again, just like a 504 plan, all the accommodations and services are required. So we expect all of our teachers to be providing them in their classes.
And we are now at the end of our session. And one of the things that had come up, Noah, is a lot of parents had questions regarding 504 plans and
Okay.
IEP questions in the registration form. So I'm going to ask one of the questions. You addressed it a bit, but let's read this question. Once
Okay.
the 504 is in place, how must a teacher know that the student's conditions and specific accommodation? So how are teachers notified that? Can you let parents know a little bit more about this process?
Yeah, I would say first of all, most of the teachers, or it's common for teachers to be a part of the 504 team, to develop the plan. But once a plan is created, the 504 coordinator will give every teacher a copy of the plan, so they will know which accommodations that they're required to provide in their classes. It's really important also, like why we say we expect all teachers to be doing that. If you find that a teacher is not doing that, or you're just not sure if a specific accommodation is being implemented correctly, you're always welcome to reach out to your school counselor, and they can help kind of look into it and support you with that. And then at the district level, I'm our district's 504 coordinator. So if you ever have any concerns with a 504 plan or accommodations, and you feel like it's not getting addressed at the school level, you're always welcome to reach out to me and my department.
And that addresses the last question, because this was a multi-part question. The question was how to handle resistance or avoidance of teachers. So it sounds like the first step would be to remind the teacher about the 504 plan. Step two would be to let the counselor at that school know about the concern with the how the 504 plan is being implemented in that class with that teacher. And step three would be to contact you as the overall 504 coordinator for the school district. Would you agree, or is there something I'm
Yes.
missing?
Yeah, I
Okay.
would also say, before just reaching out to me, you can also work with your students' administration team, the principal or assistant principals. They're good resources to utilize as well. But again, I'm always happy to help field questions and work with schools and you all to ensure that students get their support that they need.
And then it kind of ties to question number two, which was, is the student expected to advocate for herself when she needs to invoke accommodations, or is it appropriate for parents to communicate with teachers?
I think we do encourage students to advocate on their own behalf when they can, but we know that as students that can be sometimes a barrier or it can be challenging. So yeah, as parents, you're welcome to let you know the 504 coordinator and teachers know like if you have any questions about specific accommodations. If you feel that there needs to be an adjustment made to the plan, as I mentioned earlier, you're always welcome to have that conversation with the school counselor and they can set up a 504 meeting and kind of review the accommodations and see if there's any changes that need to be made. That can always occur even before you don't have to wait until for the annual review. Those can be done at any time.
And I'd like to address it from the teacher perspective, Noah. So in elementary schools, most of the students don't address the 504 not being utilized or the accommodations happening. And so for elementary schools, especially, it's really important for the teacher, for the parent to communicate with the teacher. In middle school, it's really back and forth. If a child has accommodations, middle school is really hard for children sometimes to advocate for themselves. So it really depends on the student, the relationship with the teacher, and what the accommodation is. So it may depend. You may want to coach your child, or if it's not working, you as a parent, please advocate for your child. In high school, what I've noticed is most of the students advocate for themselves. And at high school level, the students are part of the 504 meeting. The students are part of the team in middle school and high school that's talking to the other teachers, letting them know what's going on. So as much as possible, the student is part of those meetings and then also encouraged to talk to the teacher and see, hey, part of my 504 is preferential seating, or part of my 504 is seating away from a distraction, and this is a distraction. Would you move me to and in my experience, teachers are very accommodating of students, letting them know what's going on with their 504, because 504 is a legal document that needs to be followed. Okay, so this question is on IEPs. And so one of the things to note is NOAA's department, the school counselors, are not part of the special ed department, but I'm going to read it to Noah and see how he'd respond to this. Is there access to additional academic support outside? So this is not part of the IEP board, outside of normal school hours. And you've answered that already, but you want to remind parents what you said?
Yeah, so well, the IEP, like any supports like along with the IEP will occur during the school day. But there could be, additional supports, not necessarily provided by the school, but that students can access. So like, if there's extra reading support or tutoring, students there's resources like that within the community that your school counselors can help you get connected to. All of our school buildings also have a Peach Jar site where they can see that's where some of our local resources and organizations can share, if there's any like reading groups or study skill groups or things like that going on in the community, that's a good place you could check. Lorna, were you going to say something?
Well, the parent is concerned that taking time out of their class for the IEP
Oh,
support doesn't
mhm.
always work because it takes time out of the normal learning time. And it was the before after school support. So in that thing, I mean, what you're talking about is not for IEP support. So that is something you can talk to your child's case manager about the impact to the child's learning, because the case manager is trying to ensure that the child is being pulled out in elementary school during times that are not impactful. And that's how they work with it. And that's also one of the reasons why they do so much push-in nowadays. So that's definitely a conversation with the classroom, the case manager at that school, or your child's case manager for their IEP. No, do you want to add anything about that?
I would also just reiterate that as we shared earlier, like we always along with an IEP, we go with the least restrictive environment. So the goal is to have students, in their general education classes as much as they can. We don't want them to be missing, time from um, classes, and we do our best to make sure that um, they're not pulled out um, unless it's absolutely necessary.
Yes. And then on this question, the next two questions are kind of tied in. Do we have a tutoring service provided by school or something that we can pay for?
A children's service,
Tutoring
a
services.
tutoring service. Lorna, you might know.
So I know that at IMS, they have a peer tutoring program after school for Issaquah middle school students in math on Tuesdays and Thursdays. For specific tutoring for each school, I don't believe the other schools have that right now. At the high schools, they have a guided studies class, which is kind of a time, kind of like a study hall, but a little bit more support from the teachers to help students with catching up or just help with the assignments, but it's still not tutoring. So for actual tutoring, I would check in with your counselor to see if they can provide you with a list of community resources, as Noah had mentioned, because I know the public library and there are several other online and other tutoring services, but those are the only tutoring services we know. But I'm going to say for high school level, many of the teachers are available before school, after school, or their nest and homeroom time. And I know my daughter is at the high school and they provided all the times that the children can go in and get support. And again, at the high school level, that students can go in and check in with their teachers during it's either nest or homeroom to get additional help from their teacher. So, and in elementary school, the teachers work one-on-one because they do the small groups to work with students where they're at. So I'm not sure exactly what grade level they're looking for tutoring service, if it's at the middle school, in which case I would talk to the school counselor, because there are also some classes that the students are provided as an elective that are additional supports for students who might be struggling in math or reading or writing, or math or reading. Okay. Um, the next question that we're going to look at is, so can you walk us, Noah, through a parent is looking for resources and suggestions for evaluating a child for autism or high functioning autism?
So that's a great time to talk to your pediatrician. Some of our pediatricians are able to the basically assessments that they can use, but they also often refer out to specialists who can do that as well. If you don't have a pediatrician or for some reason you prefer to go the Care Solace route, you can also utilize Care Solace to find a psychiatrist or psychologist who could provide an assessment for that. But I would start with your pediatrician. I think that would be a great place to start if you have questions about that.
So once a pediatrician says to go and talk to or gives them a diagnosis of autism, the next step would be to go and talk to the school counselor and the school psychologist, and then would would that be a guidance team meeting to see what supports the child might need?
Yes, well, if there's a diagnosis and you're seeing an impact or concerned about an impact that it's having in the school setting, then yes, you would reach out to your school team, likely your school counselor, and ask for a guidance team meeting. Um, and during that meeting, they would determine whether or not the school would evaluate your student for an IEP or a 504, or if maybe they don't, they might not need either. But yeah, that's the process that you would go through.
Okay. Uh, I also want to remind parents about the slide here about healthcare plans. I have actually talked to a lot of parents whose children had hearing loss, or sometimes certain allergies or diabetes, asthma, and they sometimes don't notify the school because they don't think it is a big problem. But I always encourage all parents to make sure they note that in their EVP, enrollment verification process in August, and also talk to the school nurse to see if that concern would necessitate an individualized health plan depending on how severe it is and if it is impacting student learning. Because sometimes certain illnesses, the kids might be absent for certain time periods, or be sick or need additional resources at school that needs to be addressed so they can access learning at all times. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Next one is uh, okay. How can I help them to improve focus in the classroom and follow the instructions from the teacher?
So I think, like I said earlier, I think like if they're having trouble like following instructions, having like repeating things to them or asking them just to clarify whether or not they're grasping or understanding, what's being asked of. Um, Also, Lorna, what was the first piece that you said?
The first part was, uh, I lost my question. I'm sorry, no, I was reading some other questions. So,
About
well, we,
focusing.
oh yeah, focusing. So the student
Okay.
seems to be focusing, having a trouble focusing in the classroom, and the parent is looking for support on
Okay.
how to get help for the student to focus.
I think also like if you're working with them at home, like breaking like the assignments down into chunks or like smaller pieces. So it's not just like, oh, here's the assignment, just like, just you have 20 minutes, like start working on it. Like break it up by step. So it's kind of really clear so they can just have one item that they're focusing on at the moment. Um, and then also just having like clear directions. So just like maybe having them read you the directions to make sure that they're kind of clear about what the task is that they're working on. Um, and again, like if you're having this, ongoing struggles or challenges with your student about this at home, you could talk to your pediatrician about those concerns. And then you can also talk to your, a school counselor too, if you think it's having a larger impact at school.
Okay. Um, Thank you very much. And next one we have is how do we, the parent is interested in finding out how a child is doing at school and engagement and in the confidence level of the child in class and engagement. I'm going to respond to that as a teacher. And I would tell that parent that the best thing to do is contact the teacher and ask them these questions directly and see if the teacher would be willing to meet with you, or have a phone call conversation with you. In elementary school, that's very common for the teacher to do that because your child has one teacher. In middle and high school, that can be a little bit more challenging. And so in middle and high school, I would connect with maybe one or two teachers, the English language arts teachers are usually a good source because they tend to interact and work with the student, especially in their writing and such, just to see and get more information. Or in middle and high school, again, using the counselor to help you gather some of that information, especially if you have specific questions, and the counselor can help you collate that information, especially if there's a concern. Um, Another question we have had several questions regarding IEPs. And I'm going to honestly say that this presentation is giving you an overview on the fact that IEPs, students can access and get IEPs if there are academic learning concerns or behavioral learning concerns, and the school counselor and the guidance team will meet to decide and plan. But if your child already has an IEP, I would recommend connecting with a case manager or the special education department. Noah, would you help with that? Any other suggestions you might have?
No, I would say that's I would recommend that. Also OSPI, State of Washington, they also have a variety of resources about special education and IEPs on their website. Um, and they also have there's a PTSA special education group as well that can be it's an advocacy group that could also provide resources.
Because one of the questions a parent asked was, I would like to understand the criteria to be part of the program. And so,
Mm. So yeah, I mean, in order to be eligible or qualify for an IEP, a student needs to have a disability, and that disability has to have a negative impact on their learning. Um, and then the student's needs can't only be addressed through general educational classes alone, even if they have accommodations. That would be like a 504 plan. But if they require specially designed instruction, in addition to the accommodations, then they would qualify for an IEP. And the process would include, so like we talked about, there's a guidance team meeting, and then there's what we call a special education evaluation. And it's pretty comprehensive. Evaluation and includes, they review input and data from the school and teachers. There's also additional assessments that our school psychologists complete. So those are all factored in. They also, take into account outside, if there's information from outside providers, they take all that into account as well.
and as a teacher, my experience is parents have usually, if I've had a meeting with a parent expressing some concerns about a student's learning, then the parent has looked into it, then they usually go to the counselor, talk to the counselor, who then kind of starts the ball rolling with a guidance team meeting. The school psychologist is involved to maybe doing some evaluations, and then additional meetings are done to see if the child would qualify for an IEP. And then once that is done, then they look at what accommodations will be provided. And then there are multiple meetings, and the parent is part of that IEP team to be part of that planning throughout a lot of these, throughout all the meetings, as far as I know. So to learn more about it, there's a lot of resources on our website that I will link to this, and then I can also connect you to an IEP case director or TOSA so that you can learn more about. One of the parents asked about the elementary highly capable program, so the PEP program, and I will respond to that parent if you're here and give you resources for the highly capable program for that, because our school district definitely has a highly capable program starting in kindergarten. And then we have a Merlin and a Sage program. A Merlin is a separate school. Sage program is a pull-out program to do enrichment activities with students in elementary school. And then in middle and high school, there are counselor check-ins, but the students have the ability and the opportunity to take a lot of rigorous courses, students in that program and other students, but then they are also monitored and have check-in, a regular check-in with the school counselor in the program. So at this time, I've gone through the questions on my sheet. There are a couple comments made by parents in the chat that I will refer to the school counselor and also to special education to address. But we have a few parents in the session still. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask your questions at this time. I'm going to stop the recording so you can ask questions.